John, if you could take that on. John is our treasurer.
Well, first thing I'd like to suggest that everyone look at the Florida statutes. Look at 720.303.6, and that refers to budgets. It's several pages, but what it says is once you start reserve accounts, you have to maintain them according to the statute. Actually, I'll read this. Once an association provides for reserve accounts pursuant to paragraph D, the association shall therefore determine, maintain, and waive reserve in compliance with this subsection. When I got on board last year, I worked on preparing a budget. This year, having more time, I looked at the reserves. I am not comfortable with the reserves the way they are structured. That's my opinion, but I have responsibility as a treasurer. We've requested Pinnacle Management to solicit bids for a new engineering study. The engineering study will determine the useful life of the Vineyards infrastructure and property, and they will tell us what replacement cost is, and they will tell us what we should be putting in reserves to have the proper amount to replace it when it wears out. There are two ways that the association can do that once we get the study and review it. We can use the formula in the statute, or by a simple majority of the members, you people, you can elect not to follow the recommendation and underfund your reserves. If you underfund your reserves, you will be paying the piper sometime in the future. That's all I have on reserves.
Thank you. At this point, are there any questions and comments from the floor on the agenda items?
Where are the reserves?
The agenda items are on the agenda. The agenda items are the petition, the 2014 budget, the assessments, and the reserves. I'm sorry?
What are the reserves? Where are we on the reserves?
John?
$244,863.29 as of June 30th.
And what's that percentage of the budget?
I didn't calculate that.
But yet you say that we're going to pay the pipe.
Identify yourself.
My name's Doc.
Stand up and talk, so we know who we're talking.
Excuse me. I'm not addressing you, sir.
Pardon?
I'm not addressing you, sir. Calm down.
Well, nobody. I don't know who you are.
Sir, please.
You guys have to be a little bit polite, please. I don't want to talk, please.
My name's Dr. Rick Nappy. I live at 959 Southwest Grand Reserve Boulevard.
Thank you.
May I address the board, Mr. President?
Sure.
I was just wondering about the comment about the assertion of if we don't do this, then we pay the piper later. But yet, you really haven't investigated the whole scenario. So to make that assertion is really premature, don't you think?
The assertion is if you do not have sufficient funds in your reserve account when a particular item needs replacement. As an example, use your roads. When your roads need repaving, if you do not have the amount necessary to repave them in your reserves, you will have to have a special assessment. Or you could have holes in your roads.
I understand it, but I understand. I'm just making the point that it's abstract at this point.
Right.
Yes, because I am not a civil engineer.
Yes, but
Nor do we have anyone, so we are getting the experts.
yes, and so I was saying that sticking to the fact of we'll investigate this rather than saying we're going to pay the piper later if we don't do this is sort of misleading.
Let's say you may pay the piper. You may have to.
We're not
Depending
sure.
on what the numbers come in at.
Now, we have, Dr. Nappy, we have three different reserve estimates from, what, 2006?
You have 2006, 2008, and you have the one from the.
Right, the latest is 2011.
Okay.
But they're just kind of different in odd ways. We've got one estimate for repairing roads at $30,000. Got another one that's $200,000. So we just have to find out exactly
Sure.
what we have. So
Yeah.
we just want to go ahead and make sure that we are funded. We believe we are, first of all.
Yeah.
We believe we are funded for reserves. We just want to make sure that we are.
Oh, I don't,
That's why we're going out for it, yeah.
I wasn't taking issue at all with the investigatory part. It was just the assertion of paying a piper.
Oh, no,
It just,
no. But I mean, that's
no.
the two ways.
Because it breeds kind of fear. You know, people think that if you don't do it now, you're going to pay the piper, but it's not been investigated, so the investigatory aspects need to be covered, and then, well, no, indeed.
Exactly.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's the only thing.
Yes.
Yeah, Tom Haldane, 896 Commander.
We originally did turnover, we had an engineering firm come in.
Right.
And gave us all the projections as to
Right.
what we should put in the reserve account. And I believe we've been following that. And is there a reason other than the changing times? Why we're going through it again?
Well, because the last one we had was what, 2011, I think, John, wasn't it? What was the last one?
There was never a
There wasn't a one without the
there was
date.
a study other than the turnover study in 2006.
That was a full engineering study, Tom, where we
Yeah.
carried that thick engineering study. And we just want to make sure that we're comfortable. That's a long time ago, 2006, with what's been happening. And we looked at some of the reserve numbers that we have, and they seem a little bit out of kilter. As I say, having one number that says we need $30,000 for road resurfacing, another that's $200 and some thousand. Now, obviously, there's a time frame in there too. And when we look at a $200,000 number for road resurfacing, we're likely looking out maybe 15 years or so, and perhaps that $30,000 number is just for a skim coat or something over the roads in the next few years. We just need to find out what's what and update the numbers so we know exactly where we are.
Was that the estimate by your work?
I don't know.
Tom, I have never seen the 2006 study in whole or in part. If you have a copy, I'd love to have it.
John has a copy of it.
When did you get it?
It's okay, when I started doing research.
Could you provide a copy of that for me?
And the other thing everybody's got to remember about the reserves is if you go to sell your home and somebody's smart and they look at the reserves and the reserves are underfunded, they're going to say, well, that bill is going to come due someday in the future, so I'm going to adjust that in the price that I'm going to pay you for your house now. So that's another function that the reserves do. If you come in and your reserves look fine, there's no problem.
I believe the bank looks at that too, I mean, for
Yeah.
mortgages, they look at their reserves.
Tom.
So we just have to be assured that.
Another example, the original study said we have a 15-year roof on the clubhouse. So they based the funding on 15 years. God, if this is a 15-year roof, we all have problems here because we all have the same roof. I think these are 50-year roofs. So that probably should be adjusted downward. But let's hear what the engineer said.
No, we just need an updated copy.
Okay. We cannot adjust it until such time as we have a current study.
Right.
That's correct. Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Right.
Out for bid.
Any other questions or comments from the floor? Okay.
I have
Yes, sir.
a comment from the board,
Okay.
and I sent an email late today. If you could pass one of these,
Sure.
each of these down.
Sure.
This email was authored by me. It's the members of Vineyards Association Board of Directors, in which I make the following suggestions.
Excuse me, pardon me. This is a special meeting. Are these, and I haven't read it, but is this on the agenda items? Because that's one of the things we can discuss.
It is not. I'm not asking for the board to make a decision.
That's all we can discuss according to the attorney. No, we can discuss it afterwards. We can do it right after. I just want to be legal, if you don't mind.
Far be it for me to do anything that is illegal.
Is that, I mean, we can just, I don't have any problem discussing it, it's just that we should get rid of, we should, adjourn this meeting and then go on.
Then fine,
Okay,
that's,
is
that's,
that all right? Everybody's,
that would exactly please me.
Motion to adjourn.
second? Meeting is adjourned.
Okay,
what would you like to-
my recommendation to the board is as follows. The legal recordings that were filed and record in the Circuit Court of St. Lucie County, Florida, on December 14, 2000, consisting of the declarations of covenants, conditions, and restrictions for Tortoise Cay at St. Lucie West, commonly known as the Vineyards. At this time, the board is still using the services of the same firms that were originally selected, to the best of my knowledge and belief, by Hanover Homes, Inc., the builder, while they controlled 100% of the vineyards. Those firms are Bayshore Association Management, Inc., now known as Pinnacle Association Management, Inc., the property manager, Ross, Earl, and Bonin, PA, legal counsel, Proctor, Crook, Crowder, and Fogel, PA, accountants. In order to assure the vineyard's residents that the board is using the highest quality service providers at the lowest cost, I recommend that the board send out requests for proposals to at least 3 competent competing firms in association management, legal services, and accounting services, which would be subsequently evaluated for quality, cost, and reliability. My reason for saying this, it's been 12 and a half years. We've always had the same service providers. I won't go into this at the moment. Well, I have no concern with the individual quality of these firms. It just seems to me abundantly prudent that the board send out requests for proposals from competing competent firms so that we know that we're getting the best for the least money.
Makes sense? Yeah.
Tom Mulvaney, 96 Grand Reserve. The one fallacy in your assumption is Proctor & Cook was not the original. It was,
Remember?
Unknown to me.
who was the accountant. So
Oh, yeah.
Proctor & Cook came in after we took over.
Did they buy the firm?
No,
It's totally separate.
it's totally separate.
When did we
Where
get?
was that from?
The accounting firm we got came in after turnover. Pinnacle, I believe, was here prior to.
As Bayshore.
Yeah,
They were housed in the same offices as our builder,
correct.
who also, the same legal firm representing us is representing Pinnacle.
But it's not the same legal firm that was prior to turnover. That was Rembrandt.
Legal or accounting?
Legal. We interviewed 2 or 3 attorneys for turnover. We wound up with Ross and Bowman.
Well, we can, makes good sense if it's been that many years since we.
No, I'm not saying don't do it. All I'm saying is they were not part. I think Pinnacle was the only one that was part of it.
Okay.
So you do think that's a great idea?
It's an idea.
You also,
It doesn't hurt to check.
you also have to take into account that low price is not necessarily the best price.
Or as highest?
That's correct.
Good, that's a suggestion.
Thank you, Maurice.
Any comments from the floor?
Dr. Nappy, 959 Southwest Grand Reserve Boulevard. Would Pinnacle have that answer? Better than
What answer?
the answer of the accounting firm and the legal firm?
Well, I've only been with Pinnacle since 2011, so I don't know if they have prior to that.
Okay.
Which raises an interesting question. Assume simply for sake of argument that the board move forward on this at some future time, and assume that requests for proposals were created, sent out, and that firms were interested in our money and providing services to us for that money. And let's assume further that we selected different firms. Then it begs the question, are those records which are maintained by the legal, the management company, and the accounting company, would they be passed in entirety to a successive firm?
As far as I know.
Would that
I know, why, I shouldn't say it, I know for sure for the management company that they would be. Because we looked into that a couple years ago and we talked to another different management company. When I wasn't on the board at that time, but I was
It's in the contract.
Yeah, I know that gets turned over. With the, do you know anything about if the attorney's records get turned over? Or, I don't know if that might be a problem with the attorney. But I know with the management company, they do get turned over for sure.
As you look at Mike Morgenstern, 894 Grand Reserve, I'd like to give you a short history of what transpired at turnover. Deborah Ross and Bonin, the only people that would give us credit prior to turnover. We went to 3 additional attorneys. Everybody wanted $5,000 up front, and they wouldn't touch us. Deborah Ross said, if you can pay us, pay us. If you can't, don't worry about it. That's Ross and Bonin. Regarding Bayshore Management, we were very, and forgive me, Donna, we were very unhappy with Bayshore Management. They were hand in glove, hand in fist with the builder. We had a committee of about 4 people. I think Tom was on it. I don't remember. We had a committee of about 4 people that interviewed several management companies. Give or take $1,000, they were all at $30,000 or $31,000. Bayshore Management at that time was charging us $15,000, which was half the price. The board made a decision. We'll struggle with Bayshore Management. They're not the greatest. They lose a lot of painters. We had a lot of problems, but we were saving $15,000 a year, and that's why we didn't go to a different management company. The accountants, we came by the accountants at the recommendation of Tom Haldane. Tom was using them for his electrical contracting business. He was happy with them. We were babes in the wood. We didn't know where to go. And we sat down and started with them, and it's been satisfactory. Are there better ones for less money? I would assume so. Anybody else?
Dr. Nappy, 959 Southwest Grand Reserve Boulevard. I just wanted to clarify so the gallery knows that Bayshore is Pinnacle. It's an LLC of Bayshore, so there hasn't been any change. That's number one. When we talk about the $15,000 price tag, it's not really $15,000, it's $15,000 plus. Now, if you calibrate that $15,000 plus, and you have Miss Marvel sitting here on Wednesdays, so that's once a week, right?
Right.
So that's $100 an hour that they're being paid for her to sit here when she was sitting. Wait, no, please, if I may. That does not
included. Why do you keep going on it?
I beg your pardon?
You said it was included in the $15,000.
Well, maybe I know.
You seem to ignore that comment.
Okay, but I don't want to argue. I just like to say what I'd like to say.
Don't ignore the comment. If it's included, we need to know that.
Okay.
Is it included? There you go. So it's not an issue.
Well, I debate that. There are, if I may, there are additional costs on top of that which Pinnacle generates from our ATM machine.
Like for instance, what?
Printing, stamps, office supplies, all of those things.
We have that, we get
Well, I'm just going by your tax returns,
bonuses, pardon me?
right?
But Ms. Marvell, who paid
Now-
bonuses?
We pay several people bonuses, several.
I didn't ask if you paid several. I said, was anyone sitting out say we are? Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Mind your own business. I'm speaking to Chad. Chad can see. Oh, okay. The rest of us can leave?
Yes, we pay a bonus.
Okay, that's what I.
Right.
If I
It
may,
has nothing to do with the company, that's a personal bonus.
Okay, but that's cost. That runs.
That's
if,
$100.
if I may conclude,
Yes, please.
if I may conclude, please.
Dr. Mackey has the floor.
Thank you. Now, when we talk about saving money, but then when you add on a $25,000, $33,000 cost for legal fees, you have to beg the question, is it mismanagement of Pinnacle, and is all issues being deferred to an attorney when actually it could be handled by the board itself rather than that? So saving money and spending twice as much somewhere else. It's similar to $117,000 a year for cable. It's $127,000 plus for landscaping. I don't really think people know the exact numbers, and frankly, I have looked at the numbers, and numbers tell the truth. And in this case of the 2011, 2012 numbers, they really don't add up. There's roughly about $70,000 that's missing from the budget. From the
I'm sorry, but that sounds a lot.
It does, doesn't it? I know.
Can you clarify what you're talking about?
Well, your exempt revenue, which is our dues, the dues that we pay. The math doesn't add up. There's about $57,000 to begin with, and then when you look at other items that are buried here and there, it totals about $70-some thousand. So that would mean that roughly, yeah. So the question is, where does that go? In other words, I'm just talking math here. And when you add 1 and 1 is 2, and if it's not 2, then there's a problem.
Dr. Nappy, it appears sometimes that you add 1 and 1, it becomes 4. And I would question whether or not presenting that in this fashion is helpful to anybody.
Well, may I ask you this?
Sure.
Have you gone over the tax returns for this?
I have not.
I have.
But I'm listening to what you're saying now, and I'm going over that. And what you're saying is not indicative of what's happening.
What is happening? What is happening?
Barry Parker, 891.
Oh, yeah, I think Dr. Mackey.
No, I'll concede the floor.
I'm just listening to this, and I come from a corporate background, and I just, trying to understand what is real, what isn't. One simple way of determining it is just make everything available. I mean, why should we be hearing one thing and another?
It is available.
It is
available. I mean,
Everything is transparent.
where can all of us look at this to just verify?
Pinnacle, it's all on the website.
Barry, as Dr. Mackey has done, you have to go to Pinnacle as any resident does and request to look at anything.
Well, actually, Pinnacle didn't help me at all.
Here, there's a truth somewhere, and I want to know what the truth is.
You have a certified public accounting firm doing the audit, doing the
And
tax return.
that's available at Pinnacle during business hours?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we just did one last year.
Okay. All right. So I would suggest everyone get a copy and review,
Yes.
and then we'll know what the truth is.
I'm sorry.
My name is Tracy Skinner, and I live at 853 Southwest Grand Reserves. And I have to tell you, I'm standing around and seeing 4 cameras going. And I've known these people for a very long time. You're treating them like they have committed some kind of criminal act, or you're going to catch them committing some kind of criminal act. with
Thank
your
you very
cameras.
much.
And I'm just asking. Are you the one that wrote the letter about the dogs pooping in the yard?
I don't know if you're aware. I don't know if you're aware
I am
that
not
there are
interested in
cameras.
anything you have to say.
It's a meeting, okay?
Well,
Everybody respect everybody else.
No, I'm not interested.
there are cameras rolling in this room right now. There are cameras in this room that you don't even know about. Do you?
Okay, well, you're
Do you?
having to protect yourself. That's
I didn't come here to argue. I'm trying to protect my investment.
idiots like this time, making innuendos and don't have a foot to stand on, accusing them of stealing money.
I haven't accused them of anything.
Well,
Better than enough. Well, this is what a typical board meeting is. Of course, when you ask pointed questions and you want to get answers, it turns into this. This concludes the meeting, not on our behalf, but because the board adjourned.